confidence. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cyrus Gray, and today is our 12th edition of our show, Election Central. As we have promised earlier, we start our show 30 minutes early today, and it's primarily because many of the fans of the previous segment of our show in 2017 asked that we include a component that we have not included in this 2023 edition. In 2017, we spent some time talking about a significant event in Liberian history in every edition of Election Central, and it became very popular with the listening audience. So we're going to start today. We're going to try that for the first 30 minutes, and then we'll begin our main discussion for today on the hour with our panelists. As I said yesterday in the PR, we're going to be discussing today two things in two segments. First, we're going to be talking about, in fact, taking from the Bible, Proverbs 29:18, in paraphrase, for the lack of vision, a nation perishes. So we're going to be discussing succeeding administration, government, and our leaders since the coup of 1980, and maybe even beyond. Some people would like to talk about the period of the entire history of our country. So we're going to look at what kind of vision or lack thereof have we experienced as a country that has brought us to this junction in our history. We had commitment from four panelists, and possibly Senator Balu, who is in South Africa. If he can make the time, he's there with his wife and celebrating his birthday. He's out of there on his way back to Liberia, but if he can make the time, he will join us and we'll be happy. But we also put up our number that callers can call into the program so we can have a discussion. So for this first 30 minutes, I like to deal with an important element of Liberian history that probably a lot of people don't know about or don't talk about very much. And the reason I chose this particular topic is by accident. I teach at a school, and I'm walking through the corridors on Thursday, and there were exhibits on the wall about Black history. And one of the things on the wall caught my attention. So we want to talk about it today and talk about its relevance to Liberia and Liberia's significance in that sector that probably is either overlooked or has not been lifted at all. So in a second, we'll begin that process. Welcome to Election Central. So yesterday, this is what I saw on the board at the school. The name of the guy, Dr. David Jones Perk. Dr. David Jones Perk is listed among other people, but what he's listed for on that board, and I've researched, is in African American libraries. There are many references in university, for example, Roche University, where he graduated. David Perk is listed as the first African American, first Black man to earn a degree in medicine from an American university. And that caught my attention because I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about it. But he earned his degree from Roche, a medical school in Chicago, Illinois, in 1846. African American. In fact, he was also an abolitionist. He worked with Frederick Douglass and others pushing for the abolition of slavery. David Jones Perk. Remember that name. But I'll take you to a university, Dartmouth College, one of the oldest, in fact, the fourth uh, oldest medical schools in the United States. It was founded somewhere in the 1700s. And the speaker at the school talked about the first graduate black person from a medical school in America. Let's go to that.
20 African Americans were educated at Dartmouth under his presidency, 12 at the med school and 8 at the college. One of them was Samuel Ford McGill, a Liberian colonist originally from Baltimore, Maryland, who returned to the United States to enter a commercial medical school in Baltimore. Students there successfully opposed his admission, forcing McGill to make hasty arrangements to gain clinical training with Dr. Edward Phillips in Vermont, who later became a member of the Dartmouth faculty. And after that, he began his lectures at Dartmouth College. He was introduced as an African student so as to, in some way, increase his standing with the students. He was, in fact, an African American. McGill earned Dartmouth's MD in 1839, the first black man to receive a medical degree from a college in this country. He returned to Africa as Liberia's first black physician and later served 5 years as the acting governor of the Maryland colony of Liberia. Edward Draper, another son of an early Liberian colonist, also returned to the United States for an education. He graduated from Dartmouth in 1855, completed law studies in Baltimore, and returned home to become Liberia's first college-educated lawyer. Sadly, he died soon after returning home. His wife, Charlotte Gilbert, commissioned this striking lithograph and published a memorial book in his honor. There were others who went to Liberia in an era when finding a role and employment in this country, even if educated, for black men was difficult. Augustus Washington, class of 1846, had mastered the daguerreotype photographic technique before he emigrated to Liberia. Many of his daguerreotypes of men and women of the early Liberian Republic are on display at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. One of the photos taken before he left America was of John Brown, that rageful abolitionist who led the raid on federal troops at Harper's Ferry. Washington wrote a widely circulated 5,000-word defense of African colonization by American blacks, possibly the most persuasive argument in its time favoring Liberian colonization, which of course was a very controversial topic. Written in the style of a classic schoolboy classical declamation, the essay concluded, "He who would not live anywhere on earth in freedom and would rather live in America in social and political degradation has not attained half the dignity of his manhood."
So I'm going to come back to that. What's the point of all this? Remember David Jones Burke, and we've just listened to a professor from Dartmouth University who have given us a whole different picture. In a minute, we'll come back to it, and then we'll discuss the essence for Liberia. So David Perk is noted and carried in almost all the major references as the first black person to earn a degree in medicine from an American college. But he graduated from his University of Rush in 1847. 1847. In 1839, 8 years earlier, Dr. Samuel Ford McGill earned his degree in medicine from Dartmouth Gibson School of Medicine in the very United States. Why is it that the information is being carried that David Perk is the first Black person to earn a medical degree from a university in the United States, when in fact the facts are very, very clear? It may very well be that because Samuel McGill uh, lived in Liberia and nobody turned to your home, you have to turn to your own home. So Samuel McGill is not revered and mentioned in that category as much as David Perk. But Samuel McGill, young, returned to Liberia, started his medical practice. He eventually became governor of the state of Maryland, or the colony of Maryland, after the death of John Brown Roswell. And after holding that position, he returned to join his brothers in one of the biggest commercial enterprises in Liberia, the McGill business. They were one of the biggest business families in Liberia. What puzzles me so much is that in the face of these discrepancies, where the fights were, even Dartmouth University, it was not until 3 months ago, that was February. In February, this is what they did. They dedicated a hall. The Gibson School of Medicine dedicates Samuel Ford McGill, class of 1839, lunch in honor of the first U.S. Black medical school graduate. Now, I'm lifting this, as simple as it may appear, to call our attention, Liberians, to one of our biggest flaws. We spend a whole lot of time pontificating on our faults today, even to the extent that we like to leave the impression that we have nothing of value. We come from nothing of value. Our history is not important. There are many, many, many things about our history that are very important and significant, not only in our own small space, but globally. So the fact that even the status of Liberian history and civics is not a priority. I hear just recently a civics book has been published and it's again being taught in the school. We do not understand our laws, our constitution, and all these inadequacies informed our society and our citizenship. Other than McGill, two other Liberians fell in similar categories close to McGill, the graduate from medical schools in the United States, something that was not common among Black people at the time. So one of them also has a great story that is not commonly told in Liberia. Dr. James Kirvin Smith. When we were going to grade school, we never even told anything about James Kirvin Smith. It turns out James Kirvin Smith graduated from med school in the United States in 1848, just about the time that Perk graduated from med school. He graduated Perk in 1847. But James Kevin Smith is a more interesting character in Liberian history because he was the vice president to E.J. Rowe. He was the sixth president of Liberia. Not many people know this. Of late, it come out. In 2012-13, we were gathering material in support of the construction of a museum in collaboration then with the Minister of Information, Louis Brown, and the museum service company in the city of Houston. And it was the first time, in fact, me came across that. Around the same time, I was also writing a book, so I delved deeper into that. James Kevin Smith was vice president to E.J. Rowe. E.J. Rowe, again, is another mystery in Liberian history that not much is told about. And I will leave E.J. Rowe for another day. But Ejiro was removed from power by force around October of 1871. When he was removed from power, his vice president was set aside and a three-man council took over the country. But very soon they realized that they were in violation of the Constitution. I don't know how you do the balance. Removing the president were already in violation of the Constitution, but they realized that, in fact, by the Constitution, they did not fall in the line of succession. So James Kevin Smith was sworn in as president. And then he turned over to Joseph Jingin Rabos in January of 1872. The details of all that will be left for one of these 30 minutes. But James Kevin Smith was not listed among the presidents of Liberia when we were going to school. I don't know whether they have been changed today in Liberian the rankings of Liberian history, but there is evidence that James Kevin Smith was president of Liberia because on December 4th, 1871, he presented to the legislature the State of the Nation's address. Excuse me. And that State of the Nation address is carried in Edward Dunn's book. That's a book that has all the speeches of the president to the legislature that Edward Dunn wrote. You can research that, but you can also find that speech online. If you go online and search James Kevin Smith State of the Nation address, December 4th, 1871, you should find it. And I urge you to do that because in that speech, he craftily explained to the legislature the flaw of the forced removal of President Ejiro, who at that time was still languishing in prison. So here we are, James Kevin Smith, grad from medical school, 1848. He became vice president, became president, and strangely, after he left the presidency, he went back to Grand Bassa County, and somewhere down the road, he became superintendent of Grand Bassa County. I've never heard that before, but he became superintendent. He was as though a servant leader. In 1930, his son, Kevin Smith Jr., will become the vice president to Edwin Barclay, and he served as vice president from 1930 clean on to 1944. Then there was another medical practitioner or physician also in that era, the younger brother of Joseph Jenkins Rabos, Henry Jenkins Rabos. He also came to the United States and graduated from medical school, the same medical school that Perk graduated from at Berkshire Medical Institute. He graduated in 1849 and returned to Liberia to practice, but he died a fairly young age. Why do I bring these kinds of stuff out? They may not be significant to elderly people, but it should be for the youth, our younger people in Liberia. Like I said earlier, we have come to a state in our history where there is a sense of unfulfillment, as though 170 plus years of our history was replete with nothing. We have not achieved nothing. We didn't do nothing. I mean, it's the biggest fallacy of our history, but not only so, it's the biggest drawback. Because if you have an adult child who's been told all the time that you are worth for nothing, more than likely that adult child will not ascribe to anything of value. But we are not worth nothing. Liberia has had great times. We're going to keep on doing these 30 minutes and discussing significant elements of Liberian history. Since we talk about Ejiro, I probably thought we should not leave this discussion about James Kevin Smith without discussing another fallacy in Liberian history. Every time somebody refers to the True Wing Party, they will say the True Wing Party led Liberia for 133 years. I've always heard that 133 years is basically checking from independence to 1980. Nothing could be far from the truth. So the True Wing Party was founded in 1869 1869 would be some 20 plus years after independence. The dominant party during independence was the Republican Party, headed by Joseph Jenkins Rivers. So the shock of Liberian politics, the first major shock of Liberian politics was the electoral victory of E.J. Royal in 1869, where a brand new party was able to defeat the status quo. And the part of the root of the conflict in Liberia at that time was centered around this idea of this new group who had a whole new and different vision. E.J. Royal, Edward Wilmot Bladden, Alexander Cromwell, those like James Kirvin Smith were darker skinned, and they believed that the greatness of the small country that they have formed depended on expanding the territory into the interior to include a larger population of Africans and exploiting the resources of the continent to create one United States of Africa. Joseph Jenkins Rivers and the patriots of the Republican Party felt otherwise, and there were reasons for that. Most of those in the Joseph Jenkins Rivers camp naturally felt insecure in enlarging the borders of Liberia to include more indigenous people. The reason was simple. The light skinned who formed the Republican Party were weaker in terms of exposure to malaria. They were dying quicker. Most of them were very wealthy. They felt insecure. They had a democracy, and the Republic of Liberia was a democracy. Every adult man or property owner could vote. So their thinking was that if we enlarging the population with more indigenous people, our influence will literally fade away. So they were bitter against the expansion of Liberian territory. One of the things E.J. Royce achieved in his first year was to expand the Liberian territory as far north as to the Niger River in the town called Musudugu. When he was forcefully removed from office, the government abandoned those engagements. Those towns and those lands that had been acquired by treaties with the chieftains were all abandoned by the Liberian government, succeeding governments. So by the time the Europeans met in the Berlin Conference in 1884-86 and came into Africa, those territories that were Liberian territories became fair game, and they were taken over by the French up in the north, the French along the Ivorian border, Kavala, because the Liberian border was way into the Bariga territory beyond San Pedro, and then the British from the western side. Liberian border was beyond what is the Mano River to the into the Galanas territory. Those territories were, in fact, on the side of Sierra Leone, the British moved into Liberia, a ship into Liberia in around 1888, 3 warships, and forcibly seized that facility and made that land and asked the Liberians to sign out the land. It was a big crisis period, but we have time as we do these programs day after day to delve deeper into the history around that period. But today, what I'd like us to grasp is that Liberia has been in the forefront of the medical science, even though that recognition has been darkened, because we do not blow our own trumpet. In fact, the most prominent of Liberians in medicine was this guy we're going to talk about next, Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller. Solomon Carter Fuller left Liberia after high school at 17 years old, went to the United States, and eventually became a professor at Boston College. But he's known as the first Black psychiatrist in America. More importantly, when this dilapidating disease called Alzheimer's started to attack older people and make them lose their memory, it was a mystery to the world. So at Maximilian University, one of the most renowned German at the time, Alois Alzheimer, was tasked to find an answer to Alzheimer's. So he selected 5 of the world's best pathologists, neurologists, psychiatrists to study that with him, and one of them was Solomon Fuller Carter. So he's credited for being one of those whose work led to the deciphering of what is today the Alzheimer's disease. I want to leave us with this 30 minutes knowing that there's a whole lot of value about Liberia and a whole lot of great things about country. 170 plus years is not for nothing. Let's delve into those years. Let's find out what are the things that we did. How did we contribute to the world? And let's teach that to our children. So I will leave this section with that as we prepare to begin the main body of our show, to begin to discuss the issue of for the lack of vision, a nation perish. And in our second segment, we will talk about the big question that is in Liberia today: opposition unity. What does that mean? I want to keep your attention on this issue of Liberian history, and every Sunday before our main program, we will select a topic on Liberian history that will be informative. Go out there. I left you with a few things. Find that speech of James Craven Smith. Do your own research on who's the first Black person that earned a medical degree in the United States, and the facts will lead you to Samuel Ford McGee.
There's no mountain too great. Hear these words. Yo, what's up?
How you doing, man? Mr. Ajibon? Welcome to Election Central.
Thank you.
It's been a while, man.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, happy to have you, man.
What's the family?
Everybody doing cool. I've been trying to draw you here for a while, man. How you doing? How the family do up there?
Everybody doing okay. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our main section, Election Central. As you may know already, we have we're going to be discussing two sets of issue in two segments. We have one of our guests already here, Samuel Ajibon. Samuel Ajibon, I got to know him when he was administrator for a big democracy group, working with Dr. Sawyer and our community. Which I know you've been into technology, IT, and all that in the States, but he has stayed glued to Liberia. So I'm happy to have him on the show. I'll just give him a few minutes to say a little bit about himself, and give us his entry statement. Sam, welcome.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the platform, Cyrus. As you rightly stated, we have known each other for quite some time now. So my name is Sam Ajivon, from Liberia. I've worked at many levels. When I was in Liberia, I worked at the Ministry of State. And then I also worked with the Center for Democratic Empowerment as one of his first associates with Dr. Sawyer. Later venturing into research, where I was involved in the study on ethnic-based conflicts in Liberia, particularly focusing on the conflicts in Lofa with the Loma and the Madingos, and also in Nimba with the Gio, Mano, and the Madingos. I later moved to the United States after successfully completing our research, and I've been here since. I married. I have a wife and 3 kids, and that's just a nutshell of who Sam Ajivon is.
Yeah, that's good, Sam. Welcome, man. You are one of our outstanding and proud citizens of Liberia. Always good to talking to you. Well, we should really hear as we wait for the other guests to join us. As they join us, we'll bring them into the program. But as you as you saw in the write-up that I circulated, one of the and also coming in from the just short-term meaning of event in our history that dealt with Samuel Fall McGee. One example, who was the first Black person to earn a medical degree, but nothing is said about it. And the official narrative in the United States is that Dr. David Perk is the first, even though he graduated from med school 8 years after Samuel McGee. So we have a situation where probably because of the event of our conflict, most of our history is blurred. Everything about us appear in the eyes of the citizenry to look like Liberia hasn't been anything. We haven't done anything at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of what we see. Maybe it's because of the physical infrastructure of our country, the various societal standards, security, the absence of widespread electricity, as it would be in other parts of the world, pipe-borne water, and stuff like that. And that has permeated for years. So it leaves the impression that is basically where we've been. So just, from your perspective from the beginning, talk and with the underpinning of vision as the driver of growth and prosperity. If we are relying now today being Sunday on the Proverbs 29:18 that says, "For the lack of vision, nation perishes." How can you reference that to Liberia? If you can give us any specifics, I would appreciate it. You come with a wealth of knowledge about Liberian issues.
Yeah, I tell you this, Cyrus. The war in Liberia affected that country significantly. And when you mention about, Dr. Faulkner, and it reminds me of what we did to ourselves. I mean, take for example, you had like Rwanda, just to give an example here. They went through a very, very brutal war, civil war crisis or so. Many of the institutions were not damaged, especially infrastructure. I resided at the time of the heat of the conflict. I was in Robertsport, Grand Cape Mount County. And in Robertsport, we had the Tubman Center of Arts and Culture. That building had so many relics, so many historical artifacts. I mean, a lot of information. Do you know what happened to that building? When MPFL invaded Robertsport, they damaged the building. They went in there, all of the relics that were in there, they damaged it. All of the books, I mean, everything historical was damaged, right? And this was a facility that, because I grew up in that county, in that city, and we saw, we used to invite, there were lots of expatriates who came to Cape Mount County, went to Robertsport to do research at that facility. But everything was damaged by the war. I didn't see the reason why. I mean, you're fighting an opponent who's not in the building, who's not in any of those relics.
Oh, yeah.
But you go in there and you destroy everything. Now, here's another classic example. The first Liberian who was able to graduate from Harvard University, or I would say, I'm not sure if it's the first African, but the first Liberian, P.G. Wallow.
The first African.
Right. Playing B. Wallow. He was the first to graduate from Harvard University. How many Liberians know about that? When this man came to Liberia, after his schooling, came back to Liberia, I don't think many people know the history of what happened to him, because this was an indigenous person who came to the West, became educated, went back home, and he was trampled upon.
He became a member of the legislature. He was also secretary on the committee that was investigating Charles E.B. King, working with Arthur Barclay.
Right. There are so many accounts on how he was treated as a result of his stature from the indigenous sector of the country. But these are all historical things that have occurred in our country that not many of our people are aware of. And it all boils down to the fact that we have not paid so much attention to these things. And if we are able to go back and do some digging up, we're able to reveal a lot of things that many of our people are not aware of. And I think it's significant to do so.
So, and I get that point. Sam, you were in Liberia in the interregnum, most of the interim government period and all that. If I'm not starting, right. I'm putting up that image for us to see, because it's the image of the Hotel Africa, which was owned by the government of Liberia, right?
Right.
It was built along with some 50 villas just as adjacent the hotel, and then the Unity Conference Center. I didn't get pictures of those villas and the Unity Conference Center, but this hotel was not destroyed by the war. This hotel, up to the period of the interim government, this hotel was still standing. In fact, how did it get destroyed? And why is it? This is the same hotel, right?
Yep.
And these are peacekeepers having their tents around the hotel. This government resource, valuable resource, paid for by millions of taxpayers' dollars, was just literally tuned down. I don't know. People went there to get doors and glasses for their house or what. But what's even more amazing, Ajivon, those facilities, in whatever state they are, they have been sitting there for the last, we're going 20 years now of peaceful administration. Doesn't that occur to our leaders that these are our assets? For example, I went through the Unity Conference Center when I used to live in the Hotel Africa area there around 2018. Well, it looks like it's the wear and tear on it because of lack of usage. But this facility is sitting there that will require not significant amount of money to get it up and running.
Right.
Yet we the government institutions, the entire government is moved to hotels for retreats, spending millions of dollars mostly into the Lebanese hotel, when we have our own facility just sitting down the road that not only we could fix and use, but we could also monetize, right? I mean, what gets us like that? You know, I can't just figure it out. And we're talking about vision. What gets us like that? Because nothing fixes itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, what gets us like that? You know, we have let's look from administration to administration. And I want to spare Tolbert this the mercy of this discussion, because if we start talking about Tolbert and we start making comparisons, it will appear as though maybe those days were better than these days. Because I'm realizing after working with USAID for a while, it allowed me to travel around the country. Do you know there were water purification facility in every county capital? You know
Yeah.
there were telecommunication facility in every county capital?
Mhm.
Almost similar to here. I have a cousin of mine who's an engineer. We're discussing it. He said the telecommunication facilities that he go to inspect here, the substations, the same setup were like the same setup that they had in our counties, not only in the county headquarters, but even in places like Tapeta, which was not the main headquarters of the county. So major concentrated towns had these facilities. This is nothing you can hear of now, except that most people using cell phone. Even that, there are places in Liberia, the larger part of the country where there are no cell phone signals, no reception. Even today in the 21st century. I mean, I struggle with this. I really like you to put some flesh around this thing for me. I struggle.
So
Yeah.
recently, the outgoing U.S. ambassador to Liberia came out with a press release, and he talked about the construction of this laboratory in Liberia. I think what $40 million or so.
Yeah, the reference library, right?
Right, the reference library facility. Right. Now, on top of that, he indicated that the Liberian government yearly has to shovel up, I think, about $3 to $4 million for the upkeep of that facility. Right. So, what we have been doing is that we have been constructing these facilities in the past, and we have not been putting emphasis on the sustenance of these facilities for the future. All right. So the maintenance costs, all of those things are to be included when you allocating the construction of these facilities. What has been our government's approach in trying to make sure that, okay, we constructed Hotel Africa for the OU. The OU is going to be done in about a couple of weeks. What happens to that facility? All right. How do we maintain it? What the government was able to do, I remember in the past, was to kind of privatize it. Now, since the war, the entity that was running that facility left. They never came back. Now, rather than just maintaining the structure, the security of that facility, we let our guards down, and we have people going in there looting the facility. Now, it's going to cost the government a huge amount of money to be able to revitalize that building. Do we have the resources to do that? I don't know. Even if we were to give it to a private entity to run, do you know how much investment they have to put into that? So there has to be a rethinking of how to proceed with revitalizing such structures. You talk about water treatment facilities in different counties. I know in Grand Cape Mount County there's one in Robertsport. Luckily, they've been able to maintain that, and it was not damaged, significantly by the war. So some parts of Robertsport, if they're still maintaining it, they have drinking water, safe drinking water. But again, it all comes back to the fact that whenever the government or any entity in government or interacting with government, when we are making these investments, we have to make sure that we look down the road. And there's also the question about, once we allocate these fundings, right? How do we ensure that they are directed directly, or they are expended directly on the upkeep of these institutions, or these facilities? Because if they are allocated, and I worked in government, I know about, allocations, and I know how, when allocations were made, funds were not directly,
Yeah,
expended
funds,
on
funds were
what those
diverted.
allocations were made for. So whoever is going to be the president of the country after 2023, there has to be a rethinking of government, how we go about expending our resources, how we go about directing those funds, that they are directly impacting the lives of our people, they are directly impacting those entities that they are allocated for, and there are consequences. So I think this brings me to this whole idea of us rethinking government. What is government all about? How do we ensure that government becomes, impactful to the lives of the ordinary citizens? Because it is upon the will of the people that governments exist. So that's, I think, for me, it's about how we go about reorganizing, rethinking government post George Weah.
So thinking government, post George Weah. Guess what? Just to update, in USAID put $30 million, I think, roundabout, into the rehabilitation of 3 water purification plants. One in Roberts Post, which I've been to. One in Sanikule, I've also been there, and one in Vonjima. And the model was that they would put this money into the water plant. They put a 100 megawatt solar system there, design the whole stuff, and Water and Sewer will take over. I think after 3 years, they will phase transfer it to Water and Sewer. So after first year, I think they will push 25% of the cost of running it to Water and Sewer, then 50%, and 75% until. So 2 years ago, that should have been under the control of Water and Sewer. Water and Sewer has not been able to spend a dime to keep the facility going. So the last I heard was that the USAID is looking for private partners and trying to get the Liberian government to agree to give this stuff to a private business to run it. Then that brings the whole issue of profitability, or whether in fact the cost of running a commensurate with the bills that people will pay for water. Why this is happening? In rival sports, the World Bank funded the construction on behalf of the National Fishery and Aquaculture Agency, a huge fish landing facility for those people who have these artisanal canoes and all that, just on the bank of the Lake Piso,
Right.
close to the ocean, the mouth of the ocean. And the idea was that they would process, it would increase their catch. They put a gas station there, it would increase their catch. They have processing facilities. You would think that place needs to use water, right?
Right.
When I went into Roberts Post, the guy's engineer explained to me how a whole lot of people not plug into the water, because they also install some kiosks around where people can bring their gallons and collect a 6-gallon container of water for $5 Liberian. Right? So probably for most people, there was no incentive to have the water run directly to their homes and businesses.
Right.
The hospital in Roberts Post was not connected to that water. Just this, that water probably the best pipe-borne water in the whole country. And so just for safety and purpose, you would think that the hospital, instead of using these tanks, will want to connect to that water. They were not connected into that water. The NAFA facility, when they were connected there, they accumulated bills of more than $3,000. So the guys cut them off. I noticed a private investor, some guy who somewhere in Roberts Post on a hill, built some real nice resorts. While the guy was building, he had the water connected to his facility. So like you're talking about rethinking, maybe we need to move more into the private sector domain than government managing and supplying basic utility services, and that's a balancing act, because I mean a good number of people may not be in a position to be fair game to receive bills and pay. How do we navigate this? Sometimes the way things are unfolding in different sectors almost suggests as though there is no vision.
Mm-hmm.
There's no vision. Look at roads. You say you got money that have been provided by international donor agencies for roads. Simple road like from EW Junction to Pacopin. That road project have taken the better part of 3 years and have inconvenienced all the people who are living in that belt. In some cases, going to at some point going to what do you call the place? Police academy were almost like like literally impossible. You gotta be passing all between people's houses in places where there were no rules and things before. No, even if the rules have been constructed, there are no standards to determine detours. Because even if you're building road, the whole purpose of building road is to be able to facilitate movement, to enhance economic activities and all that. So the process of building road itself should not hamper those activities. There has to be a substitute for that. Let's welcome our guest, Paul Chilplay. He's a co-host of the Bottom Line. He's joining us from London. Paul, if you can hear me, can you unmute yourself so that we can bring you into the program? Welcome to Election Central, Paul. My head already hating dealing with Sam Adivon. This stuff trouble me a lot, but welcome. As you know, we're discussing the issue of vision and relative to how our country progress, feeding off the proverbs that for the lack of vision, our nation perish. So welcome to Election Central. Give us your entry statement. What's happening in London?
Thank you.
In fact, you should be drinking several pints of beer because the king has just gotten coronated.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to all of you for. I'm happy to join you guys tonight. This is the first time appearing on your show, and yeah, you may see the name Lord Chilopé or Paul Chilopé. The thing is, King Charles is my good friend, and today there are a lot of street party happening celebrating his coronation. And yesterday I was invited to meet President Weah, but we're in a party more. I had a lot of pint of beer, so I didn't have the strength to meet him yesterday. So yes, we are celebrating. I'm in the great city of London, and I'm happy to be with you guys here today. By the way, my name is Paul Cholope. My parents from River G. The name alone is only one place in Liberia that name come from. And I'm also here. I'm married with 3 kids. My little background, I'm a computer engineer, and few years back, I transitioned into renewable energy. So I got a business running in Liberia, doing solar panel installation and wind turbines. So I'm happy to be with you guys tonight.
Thank you. Well, before you join us on this issue and interact with Ajivon, I wanted to. There was a photo circulating 2 days ago, yesterday, with the new king of the United Kingdom and all the heads of state who visited. I know I watched George Weah going into London, into his hotel, the Dorchester Hotel, but I didn't see him on that picture. What's the explanation for that? Do you guys know?
Well, we still trying to find out why, because a lot of head of states that have been, a lot of national here been posting their picture with their country head of state, but we yet to find photograph of our president in any of the cycles. So we don't know, but we know he's in London. And also he had a meeting with the Liberian community in London, based mainly the sedition. So at the most expensive hotel, I think you guys might have heard, the Dorchester Hotel, where the rich and famous own, that's the hotel they go into, is less than what? 15,000 pounds for a single room. So you think about it.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, the man is president now.
I think Sarah's that photograph, that group photograph. Not that I am any way, But that group photograph was basically the king with the heads of state of the Commonwealth countries.
The Commonwealth
That's
countries,
right.
Right.
That's
okay,
right. Yeah.
okay. Now that makes some sense. I hope they got some photograph where our president and the king too. At least they will know that the put down was worth the while.
And I'm sure just out of humor, if we could just flip Liberia into the Commonwealth country for a few seconds, he would have done so and be a part of that photograph.
Yeah. Okay, now it makes sense now. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good explanation, right? So, Paul, here we are talking about vision.
But going back to what you were saying earlier, Cyrus, with the U.S. involvement in the construction of those facilities. If you look at how the United States have been infusing, funding into the country, there have been different stages of their own of how they were, interacting with government. Before, I think it was in the 80s or so, it was a direct involvement where the U.S. would put up the funds to the government, and the government would go ahead and undertake these projects. But the philosophy had changed. They felt that using the government was not very impactful because most of the things that they were investing in, the people were not benefiting significantly. So the approach had changed, where they were now managing the funds and giving it to nonprofit organizations to do these construction, these development projects. Now, this is why it comes back again to why I talk about us rethinking government. And I hope, because look at it this way: why would funds that are being allocated for the county be sat over by the senator of the counties? Why should the senior senator or whoever they are, why should they sit over the county development funds?
It's all constitutional,
right?
Because they shouldn't be executing the expenditure.
Exactly. What I think. I think what has to happen is we have to create a new approach where county development funds are sent directly to the counties. There are structures that are put in place, particularly for accounting and development, that are put in place to ensure that those funds are not just willy-nilly divvied out, but there are processes in place that they can be managed effectively. One of the things I also think that has to happen is we have to now think about the role of the superintendents. You cannot have a middleman between the superintendent and the executive. Superintendent should be in cabinet meetings. The level of superintendent should be elevated to cabinet levels so that these funds that are being allocated for the counties, the structures that are in place, maybe a county commission, whatever it is, those are structures that are meant to put the superintendent in check or held accountable, so that during cabinet meetings, the superintendent can directly inform the president what's going on with road construction, what's going on with health, what's going on with education, all of those things, because the superintendent is the direct representative of the president in the county. Correct. You can't create that middle level, barrier between the superintendent and the president through the internal affairs minister. I think whoever is going to run the country has to now reevaluate the role of the superintendent when it comes to development. Those are new thinking that has to be introduced into government, where we can now see how even when it comes to the issue of the budget, the legislature should have a budget office that will assess all of the allocations that are being presented by the executive. Is it feasible? Can we raise such funds? How do we allocate the funds in a way that So how do we stop representative or legislators from interfering in the exercise of distribution of these funds? All of those things have to be thought through to make sure that whatever allocations are done for government, for the people, are directly impacting the lives of our people.
And but here's the reality, Ajibon. What you are recommending is what is the law. That's the law. Because the whole idea of projects, expenditure in the counties falls under the executive branch, and it should be overseen by the superintendent of the county, right? What we have happening in Liberia now is a circumvention of the law, where the legislature is looking at that quote unquote oversight role that they have to almost be like their managerial role. They're almost acting as a board of directors, right? Holding on to funds and getting involved in the actual. So to say, okay, that is legislative project here. That is other legislative. I mean, I heard the president pro tem giving a lean excuse to the U.S. ambassador's claim that they were siphoning money in the he was implying $65 million. Yet the money that gets to the county is not nearly that amount. And his explanation was that, what the ambassador is not saying that the money is being used by the representatives in the representative projects. No. And no law allows for representative to have project.
Right.
So the county is supposed to have a whole development plan, whether for a month or a year or over time. And that plan is supervised by the mechanism that in government, whether it be the LACC, the same way the auditing bureau or the internal audit agency, the same way as the ministries also function in the capital. In fact, the ministries segments of the ministry are also inculcated in the county administration and supervised by the all those processes. I'll give you one example. I raised an issue the other day in a discussion with some friends about annual reports. Traditionally, coming to the end of the year, every institution of government is required by law to write an annual report. And that annual report includes what their program for the year were, what kind of money they receive, how they spend it, a whole other budget. The port authority, the ministries, all this today, I don't think is being required. So you search around for the annual report of institutions, you will probably just find 1 or 2%. But those are the kind of things that can be used to evaluate the performance of the institution over time, or to even evaluate the system itself, whether it's in compliance with law. Everything just been done willy-nilly, and that provides opportunity for people to start from money and think here and there. We're all any question. If you go to even from the governance perspective, the top leaders, you have a practice where the leader may be demanding money from people who are heading institutions. So once he got managed in the port, he got to take $200,000 to the president every Friday. The whole system screw up already. Who is there to say that he didn't take $500,000? Who's going to ask him any question? All he got to say that is the president. Even to Charles Steele time, they were doing that. Where you had the deputy managing director, the whole big joke, where the managing director collects the money and passes it on to his deputy, who was Charles Steele's cousin, and he would carry the money. And one day he said, "Well, I'll go with you. Let's carry the money." And the man said, "No, you can't go with me." They argue. Only to find out when they finally went there, the whole money he been giving, right? those are flawed systems,
Right.
Yeah, because human beings are corrupt. The reason why human beings exercise integrity is not inherent. It's because there are checks and balances, and people don't want to be named and shamed. People don't want to steal and get caught. So if there are systems in place that will get them caught, their level of integrity will increase. So it come back really to like you said, to not devising a new system, but going back to what is it our system is. Is it working or is not working? Maybe if we find out that certain things not working, then we need to reform them. But there are many things that are being done now that are completely contrary to the books. I mean, I just gave an example with Senator Chair explaining that the money the ambassador talking about someone here because he didn't find out that the money that legislative projects and seen the people. Who legislative project? I'm listening to this other guy or this aspiring Simeon Freeman. He has an interesting interview online. You should check it out, where they are analyzing the budget of the legislature, relying on a law that says that a government employee cannot be paid twice for the same work, right? So once you employ the government, let's say you're a minister of health and you are on the board of something, they can pay you another salary for being on the board because you're paid already as a minister. But the guy explained, looking at it, making a case with the budget, that if you look at the legislative budget, there are already budget line items that cover salary for all the legislatures, senators, representatives. Yeah, the president pro tem has a whole different budget that also allows salaries for his staff, even though that staff salary cover honor the legislative staff salary,
Right.
man by man. You know, I mean, there's so many duplications, and it suffices. Nobody asks you no questions, no reports are made. Yet, essential areas of public good is unserved. You got a country today where people still pushing water in gallon or over the hill in the capital city for people to get water in their toilets.
Wow.
Yeah, 90% of the people don't have access to safe drinking water. LEC provide electricity for only 2% of the population. Nobody asking question. I'm an international airport. You certain time you go to the airport, current go. You got a case where an airline is approaching the wrong way, and they announce to their passengers, Brussels Air say, look, guess what? The Roberts International Airport, Roberts, is closed. First thing, we don't have lights, no navigational aid, and we are calling airport, there's no response. So we'll do our best with the few we have to go back to Freetown. You know what I mean for you to be sitting in a airplane and they make it that kind of announcement. And
So
this
this is
is
what I
not
was saying.
normal thing. Yeah.
This is what I was saying. I'm sorry, Chip. This is what I was saying, Sarah, is that we need at the legislature, there is a need for a non-partisan but legislative budget office that the legislature cannot interfere with, that will be able to review the budget that the executive is going to send, even the budget of the legislature, to review such budget and critique it and draw lines before it can even come out. Because there's nothing there to say these people cannot do this or they cannot do that. So they have the free reign to do whatever they want to do. But if you have that in place, they would know that I can't have this I can't put this on my budget line. I can do this other one because it's going to go to the legislative budget office and they're going to see it and they're going to report on this. And they can't do anything to any of these people. It's completely independent. So now you have those structures in place that will check even the legislature.
Who's gonna make that law?
Well, it has to come from the leadership. The president of the country who wants to make changes in the country, who wants to make sure that you cut all of these excesses, all of these other cutting out graft, will be able to introduce that to the legislature. And if the legislature refuses to put that into law, the president has the constitutional authority to take it to the people to call for a referendum. And then once there's a referendum and the people vote on it, they're able to put that into law. But this is the thing. We have not been able to test all of the, put the Constitution to the test at its extreme to make sure that we are getting results. Even when it comes to this issue of the presidency for 6 years, legislature for 6 years, senator for 9 years, the executive has the authority to introduce it to the people. Create call for a referendum. Do you want our legislators to be in power for 9 years or 6 years? Yes or no? Put it on the ballot. If the people say no, they have to change it.
Wow. Paul?
Yeah, I've been following you guys, and you all said it all. And the topic is lack of vision. Now, I guess every government that have come to office, they have a vision. But that lack of implementation is one of the major things, because all of those things, they are laws in the book. But implementation have been a problem in Liberia. And also, we come from a society where the nation is a laid-back nation. What do I mean? Something is what is not right, that you can hold the government or the institution to a fire. That is the civil society and getting the nation out there to say, no, this is wrong. We don't do that in Liberia. So people kind of get away with everything. I heard you guys talking about the superintendent. I mean, the nation can actually rise from today. What is happening in Nigeria, happening in Ghana, the superintendent become a governor. Those positions should not be appointed position. That's something that they have to force the government to do, yet be an elected position for the people to be able to see what these guys are capable of doing. But if you work in the world of pleasure of the president, We're not going to go nowhere. In case this guy have a vision for that county and the president is not in line with his vision, he get fired. So sometimes it's the lack of will of the people to force their government to do something. We elect people to represent us. They lie to us. Then when they get into the house, we don't see them again until after six years. And then they come out with sweet talk. So when a normal society, you'll find out people will rise and say, no, this is not what we elected you guys for. So we get away with a lot of things in Liberia, and that is lack of will of the people also. And these guys use it to their advantage. And this is where we are. Everything is on the book. Why can't it be implemented?
Okay, talking about vision, Paul. I can grasp because during the Toro era, it was the vision of the administration was well articulated, right?
Right.
For example, Toro emphasized he said he was going on an attack against ignorance, disease, and poverty, and created a vehicle called Rally Time. So he created the multilateral schools to address ignorance, and with the argument that everybody does not need to go to college. People can be trained in usable skills, masonry, carpentry, plumbing, and at the high school level. So they opened a multilateral high school in Vonjama, in Nimma, in Lofa. In many places, supported heavily the teacher training institute, Zozo, in Kakata. Then in other sector, they started building hospitals. While with USAID, I went to Grand Sets and saw the Rally Time Hospital is still there. So even though we're very small, but the communication of the government's vision is still resounded even to the ordinary people. They understood that, and they could see what was being done to be able to roll it out. The emphasis on food security. There were heavy support towards farming. The BCADPs and all those institutions started to pop out, to go down to smallholder farming, farmers and all that. In fact, the agriculture college at the University of Liberia was made free for students who would do agriculture. What has been the vision of the succeeding governments, starting with Ellen and then on to where that, because you suggest that the government may have vision. Part of having a vision is to articulate it, because the people who will implement the vision are the citizens who have to have a buy-in to ride along. Give me an idea. I mean, we've been around for a while. Even we are older now. It was small. We could understand talk about vision. We're much bigger now. What was my vision? What is we has vision?
Well, let me come in the defense of Ellen here. Before I go to Ellen, we'll see Charles Taylor, because he
In
also
fact,
won.
I forgot about Gange, because you were president too. Oh, Gange vision.
Yeah. So Gange vision was war. I mean, I'll be plain blank. He just wanted power, and when he got in there, he didn't.
Oh, you were president already. You were president already.
So there was Gange will say that when he was elected, the war never stopped. He still had people fighting him.
So if whole focus were on the war
defending, just it. Yeah. So now come the great Ellen. Ellen own vision was to jumpstart the parked car, because for 14 years that broken car was there. So she needed a buy spark plug, buy a new battery and all that. She just needed to jumpstart the car. And that was Eddie's vision. So John starting the car, when the car started, it got in gear. Eddie was done with Liberian. That's what happened.
How did she do it? I know there was a big issue with education. Ellen herself said the whole education system was messy. So once you make that identification, then the next thing we're thinking that you would draw up a strategy to be able to address that. You remember in the early past Ellen era, almost all the students that took the University of Liberia's entrance exam failed.
Yeah.
So can you remember what she set into place to be able to address that? I think there was an issue. There was this guy who was Minister of Health who brought in some kind of different school system where they were privatizing the school system. You remember some of that, Ajivon?
Yeah.
One of those schools got into a controversy later on where they said the lady who set up the school got some kind of sexual issue. But
Right.
it would be interesting to know what was the whole that model? What was it about? How was it articulated so we can understand how it will address the huge gap in learning that we all say we had because the school system was a mess. We technically stay with us today.
I think, Cyrus, I think when you start to talk about the question of vision in Liberia, we have to go back, and we have to go back not only as far as Talbot, but as far as Tubman, because vision in the succeeding presidencies have been largely impacted by what transpired in the Tubman regime, in the Tubman era, because there was a core thing that permeated throughout all of these presidencies. Now, there was Gus Liberian, is dead, a professor. He talked about how even before Tubman, how governance or government became a point where people were now saw government as a means of accumulating wealth, right? What Tubman did was, in addition to accumulating wealth, he created the veneration of the presidency, right? So even when Talbot came after Tubman, Talbot tried to break this veneration of the presidency, but he had a problem with that because many of the people who he had to interact with, they had seen for over pretty close to 20 some years, they had lived in that environment. So it became more of an acceptance. So trying to break it, he ran into problems with the very people who he needed to work with. And then there was this whole stratum of the society that was clamoring for change, particularly the young people who were college educated. You have indigenous students who also were educated, and they were clamoring for change. How do you balance that? Now, let's move on to Samuel Doe. Again, rather than breaking this whole issue of the cult.
I left a whole lot of people out. Samuel Doe and all.
Yeah. Rather than breaking the cult of the presidency, there were also elements from Talbot who were also, who were also agents of Tubman that were in those regime, and tried to again reinstall or reinstitute
the imperial
presidency, right? So move from Doe, and so the thinking, the vision of Doe, even though he came to eliminate rampant corruption, misuse of public office, all of those things became even prevalent.
Yeah, it became worse.
So move from Doe to Charles Taylor. Taylor came in. Taylor was completely, I don't want to use the word replica, but you saw Taylor with a white handkerchief, like Tubman waving the handkerchief, talking like Tubman. And it was him reintroducing the veneration of the president. Even the Vision 2024, above all else, the people, it was above all else Charles Taylor. Everything that the counties, the people enjoyed was as a result of the goodwill of the president.
Of the president, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So and you move from Taylor and go to Ellen. It was, I don't see much difference.
I think Ellen changed that a little bit.
Ellen, what I believe Ellen did was she kind of subtly dampened that. But again, the largesse went as a means of the goodwill of the president.
Patronage, yeah.
The patronage system was never broken. She never reintroduced government in a way. Listen, Ellen went and told the people, the legislators are paying themselves. They are cutting his big salary for. You had the opportunity to break that by going to the people. You never did that. However, when it came to approving deals, approving concession, you were sending brown envelopes to pass those concessions.
Yeah, she was rewarding friends and family.
Exactly.
Yeah, she brought her sister into the picture. There's a big case about this Nigerian guy called Prince
Ichuku,
who was given all the public work job because he was close to Auntie Jenny.
Right.
And in fact, I understand one day there's a record procurement process where they cut a $5 million check for him in the morning. and the Jenny ran that check through the system before the end of work day that they
was
can have the
done.
money. It had never been done before. Yeah.
You come to we are pro. There's nothing pro in his this is all the accumulation of wealth. That's all they're doing, accumulating wealth over at the behest of the Liberian people. Why do people suffer? That's what. So there has never been a vision. Let me just jump back to Ellen. Ellen, with this whole thing about decentralization. My own thought was, in as much as you were kind of taking services, they introduced decentralization as if they were taking services to the people, to the counties. But my thought was, if you were to decentralize, let's see how we can create different centers of power. Empower the superintendent, empower local government, empower education boards, create those things, those things. Because guess what, Cyrus? If we went ahead and tried to reintroduce decentralization, we wouldn't have this whole problem of so many people wanting to be senator, wanting to be representative, because you now have the school board, you now have the city council, you now have the county commission, where people can select to run for those positions, and the community can see their work. Oh, this man was head of our education board. Look at what he did with our education system. Let's elect him to the county commission. And he goes to the county commission, he performs there. Oh wow, he did a lot at the county commission. Let's make him representative. But make those tenure at least 1 or 2 years. And make this election, the tenure for legislators 2 years, so that John Brown doesn't have to wait his entire 10 years or even 18 years to run to be senator.
Yeah. There's no incentive for him to do good.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's sitting there, he making that.
So we have to rethink government. We have to rethink government in its entirety.
Yeah, but my question, Ajibon and Paul, is now we're in an election year. So how do we raise that voice in a way that it resonates with people who are trying to be leaders, so that they can forge their thinking towards a whole new set of governance? Because there's nothing to say that people just come in and say, "Oh, I want to be president." I think there are some cases at my time now. I think that when they become president, we're not because the whole system of patronage is ingrained in our society.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost as though there is an expectation and there is a general apathy on the part of the population that people just take in their hurts, that they don't manifest it in any kind of way that protest what our leaders are doing. How can we start that conversation now? A few months to elections. What kind of questions should we be asking the people who are running to be president?
And Sarah, let me chime in. The thing with Liberia, something just weird of Liberian, right? We don't listen to what the people have to say, but the whole thing about numbers, and people seem to run with it then, talking about the issue and the vision of each of these guys that are running. They don't do it. So you in the US, I guess when someone is running for a state house, they have town hall meeting and thing, and people question them. They ask them serious questions. In Liberia, you will have people go on air speaking, people call, and then they will say something different. So when we have in a town hall meeting debate, this is where we raise the issue of decentralization and all of these issues that we're talking about. When you have people coming out to say, well, this is my plan for the country, if that is not in their plan, we raise the voice. Now, what become of this the civil society? Those are the group that actually we're supposed to penetrate to raise this issue, because they're on the ground, they talk to the people all the time. And what become of the journalists in Liberia? These are the key. That's why they are for estates. They're supposed to raise this issue. We're in the 21st century and we are still lacking behind all our neighboring country. And those issues should be raised. And when it comes to competition and when you decentralize, the government is decentralized, you find out that if I'm running for how they call it, representative, or not representative, but superintendent in Maryland County, I will have my own vision, somebody else will have their own vision. And guess what? Whoever wins, if they don't implement a vision in 2 years, 3 years time, they kick them out and bring in somebody new. And that you'll find that competition will start. People idea will start. They will start that implementation of what they actually want to do. So we need to speak to the civil society, the fourth estate, to push these things. That's how I see it.
I think Sarah's the issue you raised just provides a segue into this whole thing about opposition unity. I think this is where now political parties have to create or institutionalize their values, what they stand for, what are their philosophies to the Liberian people, so that the people can look at and evaluate each of these political parties and say, where do you stand on this whole thing about education? Where do you stand on accountability? Where do you stand on social issues? And try to build a constituency based on those intrinsic values that will begin to, create a tent, a wider tent for you, so that you can now be elected into government and start to act on those tenets that you have propounded to the people.
So would it be fair to say, ending this first segment, that at least the consensus is that our leaders have not manifested any vision? Not manifested any vision that
Leaders of the past
that they have articulated to the people, because part of achieving the vision is for the people themselves to participate in that vision.
There's something you must understand. One thing, Sarah. There's one thing called initial declaration and the reality.
So the always initial declaration, the guys got a name for the people, proper agenda for prosperity.
That's the initial declaration.
The how is not the how is not in it. So after that, once the guys get the power, that's it. But well, guys, I think we have a good start. That's the first segment of our program on the lack of vision on nation perish. So obviously, you can see that because we have not really doubled down on what is it we want to do and how we want to do it, and also set a mechanism in place to be able to evaluate what is being done and make necessary changes. We have just been lingering in different states of stagnation or half fakes in here and there. I hope looking into the future, we can begin to rethink. And I think one of the most important elements of this is education, an informed electorate, gentlemen. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll begin the next discussion on opposition unity. Well, we're going to elections now. We have one incumbent president, like how it's unlike the last election where Ellen was getting out of the picture. Now the whole focus is on, let's make sure this guy is not president anymore. And appearing to me that this seems to be the vision. So let's when we come on the other side, let's take a big look at what does it mean for the opposition to come together to work for the removal of the current president, George Weah. Is that enough? Okay, so let's take that short break. We'll come back. Then we can jump right into that discussion.
This old man told me that when hunger is taking over a village, to give the only cutlass to one's grandfather and the oldest man in the village to go make a farm because he has experience in making farms is to agree to let the village people die from starvation. A wise old man told me that when hunger is taking over a village, to give the only cutlass to one's grandfather and the oldest man in the village to go make a farm because he has experience in making farms is to agree to let the village people die from starvation.
Okay, let's start at that. Well, in this past week, I think it's on Monday, the supposed standard bearer of the CPP, Alexander Cummings, is giving a speech, and he ends up with that statement that he said, one old man told me that in a village where they're struggling for food, should we take the cutlass and give it to the oldest man in the village because he has experience? To do so is to let the village die for hunger. So there was a big outcry about that this guy is slinging mud against Ambassador Barkai, and he shouldn't be doing that because the opposition is supposed to be united. So tell me, Paul, you guys have been running this discussion more intensely. What does it mean by opposition unity in a democratic competitive election?
Right. Cyrus, thank you. I think this is a very interesting topic, though. Opposition unity in a normal country, Cyrus, Liberia, I'll say my country is not normal at the moment. So, in a normal country, opposition unity, they will go together when it comes to holding the government feet to fire. In recent time in Liberia, there have been a lot of mysterious deaths. Civil servants have not had pay for months. We talk about school, education over there. Hospital don't even have drugs. The US ambassador came on to latch our government. Those are where they come together, stand in unity to go after the government. That would be opposition unity. They should come all together to speak on the issue that people are dying. There's no security in the country. That is opposition unity. Now, people seeing opposition to come together in Liberia, and the thing is, they all in a tournament. They all want to win this tournament. So coming together as what? For we noticed what happened with the CPP. It didn't work because everybody have their ego. So their unity should be where they come together for like the election that is coming on. If you found some reports have been kids under 18 have been registered to vote. And those are areas that they need to come together and say, no, this is not right to hold the government feet to fire. Now, we know that in Africa, people rig election. Nigeria classic one happened in Nigeria lately. This is where they need to join forces for them to have better poll watchers around the place. Instead of them being talking about opposition unity in a way that one person had a ticket, which we know it won't work because everyone have the equal people have their own vision that the way they want to govern the country. So when we talk about opposition unity, I think it should be in that direction, coming together and hit the government on national issues.
So they shouldn't criticize each other. I mean, because that statement was basically coming throwing jab at the
Sorry, let
vice
me give
president.
an analogy here. Me and you playing football. I want to win the tournament. You want to win the tournament. Do you think I'll be easy when I play you? There's no way.
Something what you say? Because I think some people might be missing the figure the expectation that we got only one man that we're going after is weird. So even though we're in a competition, but we cannot criticize each other.
You know when I heard that saying, I, when I 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 thought to myself, I said that old man is still hungry.
He's still on it.
Because,
He said, ain't waiting for you, right?
that old man is still hungry because he has not realized that if he were given a cutlass, he would have provided the experience, the leadership, the signs, the areas where to farm, and he would be sitting there eating and be very, very,
Instead of taking the color, right?
So the reason, because he didn't take the colors, now they're all sitting there hungry. But let me so that's how I look at it in a different way. But let me go to the point here. And this whole thing about opposition unity. I think we are trying to confuse the Liberian people or the Liberian voters when we talk about opposition unity, because the process is a democratic process, right? So, but let's look at it again. Is the problem in Liberia an opposition problem? It's not an opposition problem. It's a Liberian problem. So rather than us talking about opposition unity, let's talk about Liberian unity. The Liberian people are going through so much suffering and denial and hardship. It is the Liberian people that must decide whether to keep or sustain the condition, maintain the status quo, or change the status quo.
That's right.
And so I don't see it as being an opposition problem that we should call for opposition unity, because once we take that mantra and start to go on and talk about opposition unity, we confuse the Liberian people to the fact that the people start to think, oh, but if these people can't come together, then let we all stay there. No. If we as Liberians cannot come together to change the direction of our country, then we are allowing our own suffering and hardship. So it's not a problem of opposition unity. It is a problem of the media, the social media luminaries carrying this false narrative of opposition unity. We do not need to talk about any opposition unity, but we need to create the message of Liberian unity. Liberia, Liberians, we are suffering in this country. We need to change the direction of the country. So let's come together and change this government. That should be the message instead of us saying opposition unity. And here's another thing. You talk about opposition unity. If the opposition unite to move where, who's going to be the head of that ticket? Once that party comes to leadership, what is there to say? Oh, we can't get John Brown this other position because John Brown you didn't win. All of those things, we are creating another menu for conflict in our democratic process. So I believe that there's no need for us to push this whole narrative of opposition in changing the circumstance of Liberia right now.
Yeah.
What has to happen is Liberians themselves have to stand up and say, we all have to unite to remove this menace from us. And so whoever we feel or whoever we see is competent or is ready, has the experience to be able to change and rescue this country from what is going through right now. Let's unite. Let us all Liberians, let us unite around that individual to change this nightmare, and not any this whole thing about opposition unity.
Does it appear to you that the larger Liberian population is actually involved in the scrutiny of the leaders? Well, because, we have elections, but we also have governance issue. So elections is a process by which we get the leaders. It's something occurred to me that during the election, it's made so simplistic that people don't look ahead to the governance component. For example, the last week or so has been about running mate. So there's been the issue of bringing Jeremiah Kuhn in because he will give you NIMA votes. Right now, there's a major play to get Young Bleed now, and people who are disgruntled to align with the CPP. I don't hear any question about it's almost as though it's a foregone conclusion that these are the people who are going to lead us. They don't have to explain anything to us or how they're going to do it. We just need to choose among them.
Right.
Yeah. So is that not concerning? Because if the idea is just to get rid of Weir, then we are not looking at, what is it that Weir did not do the people who are lined up now, which one of them has manifested to us sufficient evidence that they are going to do otherwise? That those kind of questions. I mean, am I making a mistake to say that those kind of questions have not been asked and not been discussed?
So Cyrus, let me say this. In 2015, I was involved in an exercise that, under this whole saying that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same different result was crazy. So we were part of an exercise or an enterprise that was meant to change that. Our efforts did not materialize because, again, we reverted to the same thing, of people doing the same thing and expecting the same result, essentially, because what we had envisioned was to do something different, but that didn't materialize. Now, this is going directly to your question. This is where now political parties have to be structured under philosophies and values that allow the people of Liberia to be able to evaluate them, and not someone saying, I've been in government for so many years, or I've worked at this highest level in corporate America, so I have the competency and all that to be able to do so. No, let the political parties, based on their orientation, based on their philosophy, based on their values, let those tenets be used by the Liberian people to look at the different the different parties and say, well, I believe in small government. What is the Union Party? What is their vision? What is their philosophy on government? Are they in favor of small government? Do they subscribe to big government? Those kinds of things. What does CDC subscribe to? Do they subscribe to social? What do they say on social issues? Those kinds of things. Let the party be based on, let the value of the party demonstrate those, and let the citizens look at all of those things and be able to evaluate them and decide. We have not reached that point yet. This is why you now have individuals stepping in and coming out with these initial declarations, as I mentioned earlier, and using them, to advance themselves, rather than using the philosophy of the party. The Unity Party stands for, when it comes to government and accountability, this is what we stand for. So I'm sitting way in Robertsport. I'm looking at Unity Party, what is still on accountability. I'm looking at ANC, what is still on accountability. I'm looking at CDC, and I said to myself, I think what Unity Party is saying is something that I subscribe to. This is where I'm going to channel my vote. But it boils down to the party really redefining themselves, selling their values, their philosophies, and then educating the society on what they stand for. That education is going to allow the society now to make that sound decision and be able to change their own circumstance based on their support for those values.
So that methodology, it seems to me, it suggests to me that that's how you determine your vision.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how you determine your vision. And without vision, you wouldn't be because what we are right now is, it look like the contest is between opposition and the people who are there now. That's the decision you have to make, whether you want we are to be there or you want opposition to come. So opposition is look like it's placed in one big balloon as the thing that you're supposed to support. without really deciphering what is it that went wrong under this last administration. How can we ask the hard question, or at least make a better determination that, or whomever or whatever group are now ascribing to the position can give us assurances that those things that brought us here will not be there. We don't have that going. So there's nothing to say that a new set of people will not take over and then we inherit the same thing, because all of a sudden when the CDC came in, all they did was that, okay, that's our time now. Yeah, so they took over, hire people into positions without any concern on their ability to perform, and whatever good steps that Ellen has taken were almost literally deconstructed across the board. I mean, the issue of security, or even civil servants' pay and payroll, and to the extent that in a few short months they had to figure out some kind of way to say, guess what? Would you reduce everybody pay? Would you harmonize? Will reduce everybody pay to accommodate our inefficiency, and even to the extent that today you got people who making $75 who may have been making $300 or before, and without even realizing that if you reduce that purchasing power to that extent, you're also hurting the growth of the economy,
That's right.
right? So and those key issues are still affecting the society today, but they are not being talked about. The talk is okay. Don't talk against the opposition. The other guys, if you show any indication that you even attending opposition meeting will fire you, like the case of Cooper Crea and the Ministry of Posts. So like the entire citizenry and the issues that have gotten us in this dungeon is still unattended and it's still not on the top table. Yeah.
You know, Cyrus, the brother spoke on something about institution. In Liberia, it can happen. But the situation on the ground where you have, or they're not doing service anymore in Liberia to start with. But then you have another group that sit there that have the microphone. They call them the fourth estate. The fourth estate have a big role here to play. Now, all along for the past 2-3 years, you've been hearing opposition fighting, taking opposition to court, now with the government. But nobody from the microphone will tell you, say, what is the policy of Teron Gonglo Party, what he's running with? What is the policy of Unity Party that will change our...
Gonglo say he was super corruption.
Right. So what is the CPP ANC slash Liberty Party policy that will better off our life? They're not talking about that. But when you keep hearing, oh, that man got 400,000 votes that were locked in a vault, and then when they're ready, they will open that vault, the number will come out. And then they go into the travel thing. Oh, because this person from Nima County or Lofa County, they have the number. But they're not telling you how would this party better off your life? Because we have a rooting establishment that came to power this year. We didn't do anything. We didn't do nothing, but they gave it to us because they love us. So we here, and Joel Howard made it plain clear. This is our time. So join us. And what does that mean? This is our time. Our time to do what the other people did in the past government. So if we have people educating us, say, look, ANC slash Liberty Party stand for this. This will better off your life. Unity Party is coming up with this. Let it have the debate. Let people listen. And we can educate our people. So if I go with this person, maybe this party, I will better off my life. But nothing as such. It's all about travelers. Oh, this one come from Lower County, he have the number. They one from Nima County have the number. Then you must stay with Joshua, who is the most popular person, because he have the number of being the most popular person in Liberia. So this whole thing, I think our whole is the fourth estate to a fire on this as well, to educate our people instead of, we need to be having debate now. You have the men who been in government for 50 years and the one who have no governmental experience. Let them put it in a room. Let them have a debate and let people listen and who they think they can go with.
This is just to buttress Paul's point. As you know, I've always been a person who has subscribed to institutionalization or institutionalizing in these groupings. We have to build our institutions around values, around philosophies, rather than just around individuals.
Yeah.
So, and we have not been able to educate our people to the extent where they see, rather than looking at the person, they're looking at the institution, right? What happened in 2017 was the people were saying, oh, because Unity Party have been in power for 12 years at the board time. The people were not able to deeply evaluate CDC. What does CDC stand for when it comes to accountability? You know, that is evident in where the country is right now when it comes to accountability. What do they stand? What are the policy on security? You know, those kinds of things. The people were not able to ask those questions. It was blindly, directed toward the individual, and we have shifted to a point where even now, it is still the same thing. Rather than asking, what is it that differentiates ANC from UP? What is it that differentiates ANC from CDC? Let's look at what it stands for on some basic things that we consider as important as electorates in Liberia. Once we are able to educate our people and make that make those differentiations, then the people now we are empowering the voters to decide on whether, well, I think I like this. I like being with Unity Party. Or I like being with CDC. Or I like being with ANC because of X, Y, Z. The media plays a serious role because the media also will be able to come and challenge those institutions rather than individuals on their own values. All right. But again, we have a problem also with the media. I mean, I don't want to go down that other path because there's also a problem there as well. So, this is where we are. And I think it is also incumbent upon those who are heading the political leaders of these entities to say, listen, don't listen to me. Go to my party website or ask my party where they stand on these issues so that you can be better informed. Don't listen to me because I've been in corporate America I went to the top, and that should be the reason why you should vote for me. Go to ANC. Ask about what are the core principles, the core values of ANC. Do those values align with mine? Go to UP and say, look, don't tell me about being in government for all you having all this. Yes, I agree. Experience is very, very important. But where does the Unity Party because it is the standing of the party that is going to impact not only the voters, it's also going to impact those who they're going to elect into the legislature, into the House and the Senate. Because now you're able to see whether those individuals are abiding by the core value and principles of the political party that's sending to represent them in government. What is Senator X stand on when it comes to this whole bloated budget? Did he go in to evaluate the budget to cut it down because Unity Party stand for small government? They do that. Then come the next election, vote that person out. So I think we have to look at again, reevaluate how political parties are structured and how they are presenting themselves to the voters. Voter education is essential to be able to make informed decisions.
You are just mentioning about source of information about the party website and things. Well, in that short discussion, I was running through the internet looking for party website, and frankly, I don't know whether it's my fault, but I didn't find any. Now, the question that I had in my mind, we seem to have a sense of where the lacking is right now. But don't you think is our biggest challenge is the quality of the population? Whether democracy, in fact, is even ideal for us? Because the democracy is a participatory exercise that is not only a matter of elections. It's a matter of the people making a determination of who can best seek their interests. In spite of the difficulties in our country, it does not appear that people are particular about holding people accountable. I mean, the last election, there was a case with this guy in the Logantown area who ran against Tali Ure. Just before the election, it came out that, in fact, he had been receiving salaries from his former job at the Ministry of Transport. Then he was promoted to Deputy Minister at Ministry of Posts. And when he went to the Ministry of Posts, he was receiving both salaries until it came to the public glare. The LACC demanded that he make refunds. And around that time, he was running for elections. People articulated that problem, got everybody to know that this guy is a cheat and this, that, but he still got voted into the position. Paul, how do you explain that?
See, this is what I've seen popularity sometimes play a mess in our country. And what happened because President George Manuel Weah handpicked this guy. So based on the president popularity,
so that means it come to my issue. That means the people are not making an examination of the
exactly. So we talk about opposition unity in the first segment. I mean, we're talking about it now. This is where the opposition should have come together to stop this guy from running. This is a situation that Liberia faced with. One person I mean, the thing with they call him Abu Kamara. The issue with
Correct.
Abu Kamara over there, but where were the laws maker? This guy is corrupt, and they're telling you, this man he's corrupt. You're gonna send him to the house. Guess what? He's gonna milk you. That was the message they were sending, and they allowed that to happen. So you see how the government, what happened to Bernie Samuka? They stopped him, but when it came to Abu Kamara, they allowed him. So hypocrisy to the highest level playing in our favor. And then I'll go back to the question of the lawmakers that were there, then the fourth estate that's supposed to be pushing the opposition themselves. What became of all of them? And they slipped through. So something is just wrong. That was when I used the word, say, in a normal country, that man he won't be elected. But Liberia, it is what it is.
You know, and
I
this
think
week,
I think I
and
think
this week,
just to add,
go ahead,
Cyrus,
sir.
I think there's the whole issue of illiteracy and education is paramount here, because sometimes I go on Facebook and I listen to some of these people these media institutions going around asking people about elections and their vote, and they ask the reason why you're voting for this person, and most times you hear people say, "Oh, I like the person." I like that shows that they have not been able to kind of evaluate, evaluate the circumstance as it relates to how the government is performing. So this is not something that the government needs to be involved in. I think political parties themselves
Yeah.
have to be involved in educating the people about where they stand. What are their policies? What are their philosophies? What are their values? Political parties are not being able to do that. Even the leaders in these political parties are not being able to push the parties. They have to push the organization and say, we have to educate our people on who we are as a party, what we stand for as a party. Once we're able to do that, we are able to embed and further institutionalize our party to where we don't have to rely on our core, our base, because our base is grounded in those intrinsic values. Let's use such education to be able to expand that base.
So we can do all kind of criticism of the progressive, but looking back, I think the messaging was much stronger. For example, Marcus Matthews, it was clear on what he stood for, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a different view of that.
Well, I mean, Marcus Matthews almost in our ears, my man. Even though, I mean,
What did he stand for?
Maybe looking back, it's hard to say. He said, "Wow, what was it? In the cause of the people, the struggle continues."
No,
The question is, Cyrus, the question is, what did he stand for?
that's a good point. What did he stand for? But
you
the
are
thing is,
you are in the cause of the people. Generally, to try to change the condition, for the betterment. I mean, I had something. We're in a terrible situation as a people.
no. So Sarah,
I got a joke about Bacchus, right? But Bacchus got a foreign affairs minister, and he was carrying around a Uzi like the soldier guys, right? So when he fell off with door and threw it out, we young guys, who were in college until were pissed off with the guy. So the guy, all the noise he made, once he became a big guy, he forgot about everybody. So where is that? The road that come from Plonko and hit the Tottenham Boulevard, the Ministry of Agriculture was somewhere around it.
Yeah.
There was a little gas station where the guy was using hand pump right in front there, right? We're hanging around there one day, back and pulled over with Pijaro. Took gas. While you were taking gas, man, we got on him, man. So look at the guy, rogue, he fooled everybody, blah, blah, blah. He sat there quietly, he took his gas, and then he pulled out. Then he turned around and came by, parked the car, and got down. But man, that guy started to explain how, in fact, with everything he wanted to do when he was in the midst of the soldiers, he said, you guys don't know how I was kidding on your behalf. I mean, they couldn't give me a chance. My very life where I stick it to my man. Before that guy left from that place, my man, we were cheering for him, my man. Look, I knew how to sing this song, but if knowing what we know today, it's not difficult to be able to provide public good in the system, because first you have to have a plan what you need to do. and you have to be pragmatic, test that plan against the implementation with the eyes open enough to see where there are flaws in the way and be ready to make adjustment on a continuous basis. First, we don't have a plan. Wherever we have a plan is the plan you talk about, the general book that is given from the beginning. Say,
Yeah.
oh, this Vision 2020 or propo for progress. And once they display that, that's it. Just this week, a case before jurors in the Supreme Court. One member of the Supreme Court ruled against claims that were brought before them by one of the civil society groups. The president of Liberia, about a month and a half ago, announced that those in his government who wanted to contest office should resign if they want to contest. Even though the law says that they should have resigned 1 year before election. And he was making this pronouncement 7 months to election, which technically was abrogating the law, because those who have not resigned 1 year earlier, it doesn't matter if they resign now, they shouldn't be running. These guys took that executive order to the Supreme Court. And I was just reading on Thursday that one Bessie or something, on the Supreme Court justice, he ruled, he threw their claims through the window, ruling that the president's executive order would stand. So I think they've now appealed it to the entire bench of the Supreme Court. But think about it. So even in an attempt to uphold the law, there are institutions, people who are entrusted with power and authority, who are standing in the way. So just even the issue of law and order, our judicial system, everything seems to suggest that the street stuff cannot be done. So the ordinary Joe, he finds his way around it or just lose interest in the process. I mean, what you say? There's a whole big issue of apathy in Liberia. Chancellor, I personally will see that when Chancellor is coming to work, even though people had the negativity that this guy alone eating the money and they hear his voice, people will leave from their homes and come down to the road just to see the president convoy. You know, and they will be pointing, oh my man, look at all the new G, man, about my man, not for children, you know.
So Cyrus, let's look at it this way, right? Go back in when we became president. What was one of the first things they tried to do? They tried to subvert the judiciary to the executive by the removal of Associate Cabinet Jane.
And they succeeded in doing that.
And they were successful in doing that. Yeah. That action by itself weakened the judiciary. And so you now have justices who are coming up with rulings that involve, that side entirely with the government.
They're afraid to offend the president.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because their whole preferment is based on the goodwill, of the president, of the executive, their existence, their reliance on justice, on their being there, is based on the goodwill and pleasure of the president, which should not be the case. One of the things that when I worked in at the interim government was that I found very, very troubling was there were many times where the administrator of the Supreme Court will come to the executive mansion trying to push those in leadership at the Ministry of State to encourage the Ministry of Finance to release funds for the judiciary. I find it very troubling that there should be an independent branch of the government that should not rely on.
Shouldn't be seeking favors for that.
The executive to call to say, oh, you gotta release the voucher, I gotta approve the voucher, they approve the check for these people to get the money for X, Y, and Z.
Do they not have means? They do not have means at their disposal to ensure that.
Exactly, because whatever is approved for the judiciary, for the Supreme Court, that money should be separate, they should have unimpeded access to those funds when it comes to their own appropriation or allocations. But that was not the case. Has it changed? It has not. I'm sure up to today, if the this, I'm sure the Chief Justice will have to sometimes call the Minister of Finance. Oh, you have to pay us, pay the judiciary the money for X, Y, and Z. That should not be the case.
Yeah.
How do you then see the independence of such body when it has to rely on the goodwill of another branch that it should be co-equal to?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
No, Cyrus, something I want to pick it back on. We're talking about institution here. Do you know it's always run around one individual in Liberia? So, for example, say Mr. Cummings, a lot of ANC supporters elect his way of doing things. But then after Mr. Cummings, what become of ANC? So you see, in the UK here, we have 3 parties, and you know what they for. The Labour Party will tell you, say, well, for the National Health Service, people will go to hospital free. They have been doing that since the 1940s. Anything regards social issue, child benefit, and all that for the poor people, that's come the Labour Party. Then you have the Conservative Party. They are about taxation and making money for the country. So our own institution, what do we label ANC or Liberty Party or UP for? Are they for the people? So if we link that, so if you go for ANC and me, it's the party of the poor. Or you go for UP, it's the party of the so-called elite, middle class people. We don't have that. And we have a smaller population that we can build this thing easily, that the message can be so. Say, look, if you vote ANC, it means your children will go to school free. Something they must carry. If you vote UP, it means you'll be in employment. Something that you should link with them. But none of them doing it. We only hear about Cholope is so popular because he comes from Report G, he plays soccer, and it does not lead or anywhere.
Kind of
So how do
philosophies.
this is
And the
the
political
second-
and part the political actors remain the same. So
Exactly.
you can see some people who have experimented in all the different parties. The band were working with CDC. All they have to do is to just shift and go on the radio and say, "I support Unity Party," and they get it like this also, or "I support the ANC if ANC is in power," and they get so you have people in cabinet who have been in the cabinet for ages between different governments because they just know which time to switch around. So it's not based on any kind of philosophy, right? That
So,
come back
so
to
if I were running, say, for office and pushing that agenda, say, if you vote for me, there'll be free education, free school for all Liberians. You're making your case that this is what I'm going to run with. But speak to the actors. Oh, they will give you some sort of message that
but you know what they will say? They say you know how Christmas look for the Eve. So that free education you're talking about tomorrow. So what do we do now?
So with all of that,
in the US, you got the Democrat, and the Republican. You know what they stand for. If you vote for them, you know what you're going to get, and they're telling you this is what we're going for. Yeah. So,
and in their institutions too, they do their best to try to vet the candidates. There's a competition for the placement to a large extent. I mean, somebody is influenced, but the voter have a clear idea on what he's buying. You know, unlike our case, because that's what's manifested in this whole idea of opposition unity. Because since we are not in power, we are one. So it doesn't matter what our philosophies are or what our plan and vision are for the country and how we are articulating it. I would just want you to make sure that once we are opposition, we're supposed to work together, which is an anomaly because at the same time you are all contesting for the same position. But you say, opposition unity. I listened to Seymour Freeman, his idea of opposition unity was almost similar to what you said, Paul, that there are some cardinal issues that they can unite around. For example, the enforcement of the code of conduct. Maybe working together to ensure that during elections there are well over 5,000-6,000 polling places. And one of the big concerns is that each party is supposed to have their observer at those places. Most times, most parties do not have the capacity or the planning tourists to be able. Because I don't see how, in fact, I don't see how because the political party is about people, right? Now, if you're contesting the presidency of the country in any true sense, you are telling us that you have people all over the country, right? Because the contest is all over the country. It may be in varying numbers. Some people will have more people than you, but you should have people all over. That's why to you register a party, there's a requirement for you to have at least a certain number of members in this county. Now, it makes sense that, hey, whatever members you have in the remotest part of the country, in Foya, for example, those are the members that you should provide some conscientization and training to, so that whatever polling places at their area that they represent you, or is it that you got to bring a representative from area to go to all those places around the country? So the argument that has been made that many times some of the parties are not represented, and it creates an opportunity for cheating.
So Sarah, it makes sense that they come from other parts of the counties, because what happens if you're sending people there? The ruling establishment have a way of doing things. They have loose cash, and it's easier to give somebody money at the polling station to just turn away. So if you have people from other parts of the country that money will not fall their eyes, they help you in
Okay.
that process.
I see
Yeah.
that what you mean, but you come in with the assumption that the people who are in their locale are susceptible to bribes. The people who live in the area, they don't have concern about the party that they have identified with for the party to take over power. That it's easy for you to give them money. That's what you imply, right?
So it's easier to identify somebody that is what we call, when you're mouth drinking in Liberia, a hungry person sitting to a pool washer. It's easy in our environment to identify people like that. And I can tell you, the election that took place in Mosorado County, West Durham, they don't won. Some of the pool washer were tempted with $75,000. And because those that sat there, money didn't for their eyes, they were able to do their jobs.
So let's put some color on this, Paul.
Yeah.
So at a polling place in Monrovia, it's not one party that have representative there,
No.
right? The assumption is that all parties should have representative, but the logic is that most parties don't have the resource to put people to 5,000 places, right?
Yeah.
So some places they will not have people there. So if you got 21 political parties running, or 21 candidates,
Yeah.
in some cases, one party may not have people there, but there will still be a mixture of people at the polling station. Does it make sense? Or is there a case where there will be no observer at a particular polling station at all?
I can give you an example. The 2017 election, I was on Branel Farm. It was one of the polling station there. ANC had no representation there.
Who else had representation there?
They had one person from Unity Party there, and the government had somebody there. There was nobody from the Liberty Party. So at that polling station, this is where I said, oh, so if you have one person from Unity Party there, and then the government have somebody, what happened? They have supervisor coming, driving around the polling center. If these people driving around, you don't know their intent, and they found out that you don't have representation there, it's easy piece of cake for the ruling establishment, because that's where they'll say, okay, they will take this person to a corner and give that person something. So the opposition unity, if this party cannot make it and the other party can provide 2-3 person there, it make it much better. They share that. It's easy because some of the places they will learn, some of the polling, the poll watcher were getting $20 a day. $20 a day. Some of the party could not afford $20 a day for three or four poll watcher.
So
So
should there be a political party that cannot fund the exercise of electing the officials?
So,
it
so
should be a, go on, brother.
go ahead, Paul.
No, they should. If they have a unit, at least they identify those who are going to represent them. It's easier that way. So if you have 5 or 6 person maximum in each of the polling center, now they come from different. So it's difficult for anyone to penetrate them.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Pastor.
Yeah, what I think we have been discussing is actually challenges that are besetting our political process. Now, those challenges do they equate to us embracing the multiplicity of political parties, or do they say to us that we have to make sure that we kind of narrow down this whole thing about, you know, creating so many parties that it confuses our people, particularly so since we have a larger population that are not able to read and write, understand the nuances of these things. So then again, we now go back to this whole issue of opposition unity. What what do we actually mean? Are we saying that we should now narrow down our political institutions to maybe 1 or 2 or 3? You know,
Because Sam, it doesn't seem to be a contest over ideas.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do we make it where we create our process where it based on apples and oranges? So party X, Y, Z. If you associate with oranges, so all of these people who like oranges, okay, you in this party, orange party. All the people who like banana, you on this
Banana
you're
party.
you're banana. So when we go to election, it's going apple, but I mean orange versus banana. So we have to again re-examine all of this based on where we find ourselves as a population. Are we able to maintain such a thing? Again, for now, I believe that we don't have an opposition problem. We have a Liberian problem. And so rather than us, every day, media groups talking about opposition to unity, let's talk about how we can unite the Liberian people in changing the circumstance of the movement of the country. How do we unite around changing this regime that is taking the country, into the ground? That should be the focus here. And not on the focus should not be on opposition unity or opposition disunity. The focus should be on how do we change the direction of this country by making sure that this regime is removed. And this is a Liberian problem. It is not an opposition problem. Because if we go down the path about opposition disunity, we will not be addressing the effects of that opposition disunity, because it's going to come to where everyone's all the parties will say, well, I supported you, I want this. It's going to lead to chaos.
I'd like to share something here, and it comes to what we're talking about, right? The institution, for example, the NEC. The NEC is in part not holding up part of its responsibility that should help us narrow the number of choices that we have. Because under the election laws, right, since the party formation is about people, there's a provision in election laws that say every time a vote is cast, a party to remain a legitimate registered party has to garner at least 2% of the votes, right? If you look at this picture here, I'm trying to find a way to enlarge it for us. I don't think there's there's a tabulation of the percentage of votes that were cast here. It comes from the 2017 campaign that shows that only 4 parties or 4 contestants got 2% and up out of the 21 plus contestant. Give me a second, I'll pull that up. So if we follow that logic, that means the other parties, according to the law, should have been deregistered.
But also too, Cyrus. Then we can go back and say, okay, so in your registration process, right? You submitted all of these names from the different counties as members of your political party, right? But here we had an election. The number you provided to us didn't even come to
vote for you.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you don't need to be you don't need to be a political party. So
Right.
you can use that even litigate against that party and say you lied to the election commission because you provided false information to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me find this. This stuff is clear. I mean, from the ALP, the lowest vote was 7% ANC. After ANC, everything else ALP was 1.6%, and that applied to the rest of the other 14 parties. Some of them got 0.2 percent. Some parties got less than 1,000 votes. They're still political parties today.
Right.
And even that is a burden even on the conduct of the elections, because the laws are clear about that they should have been deregistered. So by now we should be around 5 or so political party where we are choosing among. So in terms of cost, logistics, and all that, it becomes more manageable. And then for choice, since we are not, our people are basically not contesting on ideas, but personalities, then they will have at least far less personality to deal with than 21. So I think the elections commission itself is not helping in this process.
So based on that, Sarah, it's supposed to be 3 candidates at this time.
Well,
Because if you look,
it's Barkai, it's LP, Prince Johnson, and the ANC. They all had more than 2%.
right. So you say it's they all have more than 2. So there are about 5 parties in there.
5 parties, correct.
So those 5 parties, 2 now as collaboration. The CPP, Liberty Party, and the ANC.
So kind of
Prince Johnson in the collaboration now. So that level, it should be only 3. The rest of them not supposed to even be in this race.
Right.
Yeah, correct. But we don't even enforce that. And I don't think that's too hard for the elections commission to do. I mean, the whole idea is just focusing on registering people and then having them come to the post to vote. But there are a whole lot of things in the election laws that's a provision of the law that say the political party has to maintain $10,000 minimum deposit in its financial account. Do they check that? And I think the intent of the framers of those laws was to ensure that you don't just have a proliferation of small groups masquerading as a political party. And it is the reason why, in fact, we are having some of the discussion we are having about opposition unity or no opposition unity that is devoid of ideas. It's only focusing on people, personalities. Yes. So it does not allow even for the contestants to have a fair shake to explain to the people, what do I do to address education? What do I do to address law and order? Or what do I do to address the economy? We don't hear those discussions. If we hear them only generally. I mean, I hear the vice president say his ruling philosophy is based on something called arrest. A for agriculture. This so agriculture. What exactly? When you say agriculture, what do you mean? What is it you're going to be doing? How do we understand it so that we can participate? We don't really have those discussions, and that we are embedded. So as we get close to election, at least in our own way, we need to begin to lift this concern with no qualm to anybody. Look, people who take the leadership end up literally owning or managing the bulk of our resources, and their decision impact the people. The least that can be asked is why they are contesting the position, is to ask of them how would they go about creating the public good that they are ascribing to take over. So I think we've had. Go ahead.
If NEC was going to do their job right, today we'll have three parties contesting, and then we'll know the institution that we're talking about. Who among the three parties now, who come up with the best idea that people can gravitate towards? But with now, when you come back to the 21 parties, people get more confused. And
So,
because you
so,
hear it,
so you are talking about, are you talking about civil society involvement in that? You think it's something like that you can compel NEC to be able to enforce the law?
Well, definitely. NEC has a responsibility not only to the government but to the people,
yeah,
because here are these political parties in the registration process. They were required to present or provide, X number of signatures. I mean, basically saying these are all of our voters, these are all of our members, right? But then you go to election, and we find that even the number you provide to us, you don't even get up to that number
To vote for you.
right.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's either that you lie to NEC, which is perjury, and that in itself is a violation of the law, and NEC can take you to court.
yeah,
Because now NEC has all of the information to show that you didn't you didn't stand up to what you have presented. So NEC can delist you as a political party. They have the authority to do so. And even if you went to the Supreme Court to adjudicate on that, the Supreme Court can look at the evidence and say, okay, you said John Brown, you provided a list with John Brown name on it. NEC has, John Brown, John Brown was your party chairman in River G. But John Brown holds a CDC membership card. John Brown voted for CDC. How then did this happen? Did you lie to NEC that John Brown was? Did you forge John Brown's name or signature on this list? So we can hold those parties accountable and delist them if they're not able to provide the necessary supporting documentation. We can delist them. I think there's a lot.
The path is there. Yeah, good. Well, guys, I think we've literally exhausted our time, but I think we had a great exchange here. I will give in for parting comments. To start with Paul, but Paul, I want you to talk to us because we've heard that your show, the bottom line, is going to be going local in Liberia on a local radio station. So as you give us your closing statement, maybe touch on that a little bit and probably inform our audience too, so that they can listen out for it.
okay. Thank you, Sarah. It was great being on the show. It was a great interchange. I love this. And just to let you know, this were also on our online radio as we speak. Is also our online, the Borderland online radio, which is 24/7. This is on it now. Is and then
Oh
on
yeah,
Tuesday,
we appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. And then on Tuesday, the Borderland, we call it the Borderland Discussion Live, will be on Rare Power radio station on Tuesday, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Liberia time. That will be our first, and they actually reach 11 counties. So we'll be hitting 11 counties on Tuesday, and Saros will be joining us on Tuesday as well on the Borderland discussion. Yes, so we're looking forward to that, and we're going to make an impact in Liberia. We'll also be talking to people about how, before they make their choice, we'll inform them what they should watch out for. Talking about representatives, senators before the presidential election. These are areas that we need to talk about because there's nobody in Liberia talking about it. The only people banning each other with numbers. So if Tomo Father wants to run in District 5, what people should watch out for, who is this Tomo Father? Have he worked before? If he's renting or he come from a Z house, they need to watch out for all that instead of getting people.
So Zinghos man can't run?
So no, the thing is, because we are aware now for many years, if you come from Zine House, you get in there, you start riding big car, the people become your servants. So all of those things that people should be careful now. Before they vote somebody in District 2, they should, who is this person? He got his own property. What have he done before? They say the past performance will determine your future. Exactly. So we need to talk to our people too. Yeah. So we'll be going live, and then a lot of topics So, but I enjoyed this. It was good being here for the first time, and then I'm also looking forward to the next discussion. And Sam, I like your talk. Is great.
Sam
We'd
is
love
solid.
to have we'd love to have you on the bottom line too, because this is where
Anytime.
we need to send the message to our people. So yes, it was good being here, Cyrus, and
Thank
I'll
you
say
for
thanks to the audience
thanks
as
for
well.
thanks for coming as always. Sam?
So thanks first for inviting me, Cyrus, and thanks for being with you, Paul, on this enlightening uh, uh, event. I'm happy to be a part of it, and as you know, Cyrus, I'm always available once my schedule, is the
Permits, yeah.
Sunday is great. The timing for this was great, and so we've talked about vision and we've talked about opposition unity. I think you know, looking back, we have to make sure that our leaders or our institutions demonstrate the actual vision of where those institutions want to take the country rather than an individual wanting to take the country. Once we're able to have the institutions determining where the country needs to be and how they want to move the country, then we are able to enlighten and educate our people sufficiently. But it all boils down to us taking the initiative to be able to kind of show them where or differentiate to them the difference between party A and party B and not individual A or individual B. Once we're able to do that, we're able to carve out a vision for the country. So Unity Party stands for small government. Unity Party stands for accountability. This is how these things are going to happen. I, as a voter, do I find comfort in what they stand for, or do I find comfort in something else that another party stands for? That I can go there and learn and be a part of that process. When it comes to opposition unity, I think what we have now in Liberia is a Liberian problem. It's not an opposition problem. It is a Liberian problem that I believe all Liberians will have to come together to move or remove this government from on the shoulders, from on the back of the people, because this government is running or has ran the country into the ground. And so it's time for all Liberians to coalesce around a candidate who they see as being able to move or to take seeds of this country and start to create the level playing field or the fulcrum or the plain canvas that will now start for succeeding governments or succeeding leadership to move this country in a better and more prosperous direction. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to the listeners for listening. And anytime I'm available to be able to add more, so more voices to the argument or context of the argument going forward. Thank you, Cyrus.
Thank you, man. Sam, thanks for taking up your Sunday and joining us. And I think you've contributed, both of you, enormously to this discourse. I like to, we're also planning to have the election central run in Liberia. We're giving ourselves a 30-day. We're negotiating a couple of radio stations. So guess what? I put up, this is a community radio. I put up our Cash App and Zelle page. So if you'd like to contribute anything to that effect, the average cost of running this show every week in Monrovia is about $200. We appreciate that. But we're looking for by at least the beginning of June to begin to broadcast directly in Liberia. This is again Election Central. Thanks again for joining us this Sunday. I'd like to leave you with a rendition of. We work on a band in Liberia where we build a band. I've been away for a little bit. I hope they stay hanging on to it. Everything in Liberia is small cheese. So I took one of the the performance at the event that we had in Liberia, and I wanted to share this in closing. So let me try to pull it out for us, so see we can listen to our own Liberian band instead of the usual reference to already established international groups. They call themselves They call themselves the Soys. They're headed by a young Liberian. He's a IT specialist, but he also plays the sax.